Before we get started, let's do a quick review on what you want to achieve as a result of this final partnership setup conversation. You want to walk away with shared understanding and/or agreement between you and your client on three things: agreement on the recommended methodology, selected option, and commensurable fees; agreement on the contracted expectations on what both you and your client need from one another in order to fulfill your roles in the partnership; and then finally, agreement on next steps. And again, the primary skills that you're going to draw on during this phase of the partnership setup conversation are education, sales, and team building. So now we have the end in mind, let's review the steps on how to get there. So step one, make personal contact again. As I said before, the partnership setup process both starts and ends with your ability to establish trust. There are several things that you need to do to get this meeting started well, so you don't have your client at hello. So you still need to connect with them on an individual level and provide a rewind of what's been discussed before and the purpose for this meeting, which is to review and discuss options for a potential strategic partnership. Ask your client what else they hope to get out of their time together, and tell them how excited you are to present your ideas that you know will add dramatic value to them and that you know that they will be excited about. Second, affirm directional agreement. Now, many ask me, what's the best time to submit a proposal? And it is during this step that I find to be the best time that leads to the most success. I never send a proposal ahead of time, but I may send a summary of the directional agreement to get that confirmation via email. But I don't provide the whole proposal without me having the opportunity to educate my client on the thinking behind what is contained. So the directional agreement discussion really should be just a formality, and I present it in that manner. So you could simply say, this is what we discussed before and what we've already been going back and forth on. Did I get this right? What would you add, change, or delete to what I've just framed up in terms of the background and objectives? Third, present the methodology and why it will address the business performance gaps. Now, presenting your methodology is a critical moment when you transfer valuable knowledge and skills to your clients, as well as let them know how others have experienced the results that they desire from using this process. So what you do here is you simply explain the methodology and what each component or step contains. And then you could share stories and case studies from your past experience with other clients who have leveraged this type of methodology. And as a result, your client will gain confidence in your expertise and that you are using a tested and proven approach that has worked for others. Fourth, present partnership options. Now, once your client becomes familiar with what they need to do step by step to bridge their performance gaps, you can then share options for your involvement. Now, when you share the options, highlight three things for your clients: what's included in each option, the value that's created by each option, and the impact on your client's time in each option. So we've already established that the market need for consultants relates to the ever-increasing workloads that organizations are experiencing. The better that you're able to demonstrate that your involvement actually maximizes everyone in the organization's time and reduces the extent that people will be pulled away from their day jobs, the even more compelling your options become. Fifth, ask your client for their wants and commitments. Now, specifically, ask for option selection and commitment, but do not coerce. Remember, it's an invitation for strategic partnership, not a high-pressure sales situation. So you need to care, but not too much. This project at hand is their project, and they need to provide the energy and desire to bridge their performance gaps. So to be effective at this stage of this process, you have to be very aware of all the decision points and choices that are going on inside the client. This decision is in part about you, but more often than not, this is about them. They are asking themselves really hard questions such as, do I really value this work enough to pay for it? Am I ready to expose myself to a third party on this level? Am I ready to make this change happen in my organization? Do I have what it takes to lead this type of change? And do I really have the time to prioritize doing all this work right? And so on. So when you ask for a commitment, you're asking for so much more than a signature on a dotted line. You are asking your client to step up and step out in whole new ways. So as you go about asking for commitment, you have to be prepared to address objections. And to address objections, you have to know the difference between an objection and resistance. Now, objections are legitimate issues that a client has with regards to your proposal. Resistance is a masked expression of a loss of control, vulnerability, or self-esteem. And you have to know the difference between the two because you handle them very differently. An objection can be addressed logically and through negotiation. Resistance, not so much. So in the next video, we will be discussing how to address the most typical objections that your clients might have. Sixth, develop contracted agreements for the relationship. Again, the root of all conflict is unmet expectations, and you and your client both have expectations for one another and how you need to partner together. So in order for the project to be successful, it is in your best interest as well as your clients to make those expectations explicit and come to agreement on them. So we're going to be going over some of the typical client expectations that they have, but also what every consultant should ask in an additional video. And seventh, and your final step, agree on next steps. You have some logical steps to sign off on in terms of finalizing the contract and obtaining payment. But before you leave this meeting, you have to know that your work with your client has already begun. Therefore, you have to make plans for what the two of you will need to do in order to get started. Now, I have some ideas on what you need to do first that I will share with you in the final video of this course. So that's it. So hopefully by now, you'll have been provided your own runway experience where you can now see clearly how to transform a prospect into a winning partner. Join me in the next video where I will reveal the most common objection.